So it's pretty rare that we get to know what's going on inside of pro players' heads, the best in the world, like the Rory McIlroys of the world. But yesterday we were both watching the players on TV, and Rory had this awesome interview where he was talking about how his driving's, the best in the world right now, maybe ever. And yet he was struggling with his irons and just kind of the swing thoughts that were going through his head when he was trying to hit these shots. And so we were talking today about it, and Ed had some interesting thoughts on, what's going on when he's thinking about these things and how that applies to amateur players like us. How should we be thinking about shots like this?
Yeah, exactly. And so I'll demonstrate you my ideas, and I'll tell you a little bit of what's going on with him, in my opinion of it. And not a critique at all. Like you said, he's arguably the best driver ever.
Yeah.
Great player. Prior to that, Greg Norman was probably, in my opinion, the best driver ever.
Yeah.
And interested with the politics in golf.
Yeah, they don't
between
get along
those two.
too well
I
these
know
days.
they're the best two drivers ever.
Yeah.
But I'll go through what's going on with him and why he's having issues and why you are too. So, because I find that all the time. People either love their irons and hate their woods, or they love their woods and hate their irons.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for it. And once you understand that, it'll help you improve in your game in the area that you're lacking.
Yeah, well, for me personally, I'll even flip that. Sometimes my driver and woods are feeling amazing and I just can't hit my irons. And then the next day, my irons are great and I can't hit the driver. And it's
Yep.
tough to have both of them working at the same time.
It is hard. And I hear that scenario a lot too. So we'll discuss those issues and we'll discuss ways to practice it to get better and improve.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I have this amazing feeling with my woods at the minute, and I know you saw a couple of tee shots yesterday, and but when I try to recreate that feeling with the irons, it starts left and goes further left, and I think it's to do with you turn harder with a wood and you're sort of clearing harder, and then I think sometimes and it's really it's a feeling of at the top in transition. And when I try to do it with an iron and instead of a wood, I think it just sort of drops behind me. And then, I love this feeling of firing my right arm down the target line. And I can do that with my woods really well. But then when I try to do that with my irons, it club face closes over and goes left. So it's almost like two different swings.
The swing is not the same with every club. It's that simple. The clubs aren't made the same. Therefore, it's impossible for them to swing the same. I have a 7-iron here and a driver. They're obviously not the same length. They're not the same shaft angle, and they don't have the same forward leans. If I saw a driver like this, you can see that the handle is back. It doesn't set up with a forward lean at all. So that's why we tee driver up on a high tee and we play it forward in our stance. And at impact, I can have the handle be behind the head. And that's the best way to hit a driver. Rory does that better than anybody. And it's not, I'm not critiquing his swing at all. And it's not fair for me to do that because I'm not standing behind him watching him hit balls. And I don't have a track man behind him where I can see his numbers, but I have a general idea what his numbers are. And I don't have video behind him so I am not critiquing his swing by any means, but I'm going to tell you what I think happens. So Rory swings to the right with his driver and his woods, and he swings up at impact. So his attack angle with the driver is in the +4, +5, +6. I've seen videos where he's been +7 on an attack angle. But an attack angle with a pitching wedge should be -8 or -9. And so, man, to go from +5 or +7 to -9 is a big, big ask for any player. And so that's where he has an issue. And so the more I swing up and to the right, once I swing past the bottom of my swing, the face of my club starts to point to the left. So I doubt very seriously if his club face is closed, but I do think it points to the left. And because he's also too shallow, I think he probably, at impact, has the toe up in the air a little bit where the heel catches and also makes the ball go left. So it's a pretty interesting thing is that when we're swinging too flat with an iron, we're going to have those issues of the club pointing to the left at impact and with the toe off the ground. And so let me demonstrate here how I would go about feeling that. And in his interview, he says he's trying to duplicate the same feel with these irons as he does with his driver. And he shouldn't be doing that, in my opinion. It doesn't feel the same. It shouldn't feel the same because the swing is simply not the same. And so, definition of swing plane. Here I am set up driver distance away from the ball. I have a target line on the ground, this yellow stick. If I'm on the correct shaft angle with driver in this position, the butt end of my club should point at the target line. So that's the angle that a driver swings on. Most tour players swing a driver at about a 50-degree angle, okay? And most players on tour swing a 6-iron on a 60-degree angle. So there's 10 degrees difference in shaft angle between a 6-iron and a driver, and there's going to be even a bigger discrepancy in angles by the time you get to 8-iron, 9-iron, pitching wedge. So my 6-iron on that is going to be on an angle like this. And so look at that angle here with 6-iron, and then look at this angle with driver, and you can see they're not the same. And so when Rory tries to duplicate his right arm feeling with an iron, it gets on more on the same angle like a driver, and because of that, he's going to bottom out behind the ball. So then, since his bottom happened behind the ball too much, his face points to the left, and it starts left and goes left. It's that simple. And so, for those of you at home, you know, learning when you get to an L position in your backswing with your left arm parallel to the ground, this shaft should point at your target line. With driver that's on this angle, with 6-iron, when I do that, I'm on that angle there. And so it's different. And even my follow through, a 6-iron is going to be on this angle on the way through. And then if I set up with driver, it's going to be on a flatter angle around me and point at my target line. So keep that in mind as a player. Understand that the clubs are different. They're not made the same. We have to swing each one on its shaft angle at impact, especially, to promote good shots. And so, like I said, Rory went out and shot 65 today. I guess he hit his irons great today, it sounded to me like. So maybe he got steeper with them and felt it better. But don't be trying to feel the same with a wedge and with a driver. The tempo could be the same, and you know, and how you hold the club, and there's a lot of similarities, but the angle the club swings on is different. And if you'll understand that as a player, I promise you'll get better. A couple of drills that you can do to work on this issue that I find that helps is you can set up alignment sticks a couple 3 feet behind the ball that matches your shaft angle of the club you're using. So I'm matching the shaft angle with this iron with this one, and then I would match the shaft angle with the driver with the other one. And you ought to be able to see the difference in these alignment sticks, these white sticks that are in the ground here. that they are on different angles. And so as you practice and hit balls, you might do practice swings at first, depending on the level of player you are. But if I set up with my iron, I can set up here, and I'm trying to match this angle on the way down, and I'm going to hit balls with that shaft on that angle. Obviously, if I get too flat, I'm going to come underneath that stick on the way down, and it'll help you get steeper if that's your problem or you're getting stuck on the way down. The other thing that I like to do, especially with irons, and if we're trying to increase our angle of attack, is I've shown this in chipping before, but I like to put a stick on the ground, maybe only a club head wide from behind the ball, especially with a 7, 8, 9 iron pitching wedge. And from my ball position, my angle of attack's got to be such that as I'm approaching the ball, I have to swing over this stick, and that I'm trying to bottom out 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 inches in front of the ball instead of behind the ball or instead of at the ball. And so I really like a simple drill like this alignment stick, a few inches behind the ball, and just hit shots where you can hit the ball first, then take a divot and not hit this stick. I promise you, most of the amateur players that I work with would bottom out behind the ball almost every time at first and hit that stick. So alignment sticks, 2 good drills that you can work on to help get a better angle of attack and work on this problem and understand how to swing each club the way it's built.